You're watching The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales, streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
So, it's award season, and the only award I care about are the Razzies, and we didn't get nominated for any for this show. I blame Sean. He should have nominated us for a Golden Raspberry Award for being the worst at something, but instead, we just have to talk about new books that are in stores this week on this show called In Stores This Week. Instead of talking about how we're nominated for the worst ensemble group of comic book readers ever assembled or something. I don't know that we actually are, but it'd be nice to be nominated. We'll be right back.
Today, the part of Jay will be played by Sean.
Yeah. If you haven't noticed, Jay's not here because Jay is trying very hard not to wake up Jenna while also still breathing.
Yes, a very wise precaution.
Also would make Jenna angry. So we're not going to get into all of that. But, it was a super fun week for comics. A lot of good reads this week. And we are going to get to all of them. But first, the Razzies. I just think that Morbius should have gotten more nominations for being the worst thing ever than it did. But then when I noticed that it was competing against a movie starring Machine Gun Kelly, I understand why it wasn't. So, do you guys want to? We have 12 books this week, which is more than normal. Mm-hmm. Only because I messaged Dan late last night going, "Hey, we have 2 Mad Cave books that I forgot to tell you about."
We have 11 books. We dropped one, remember?
Well, I didn't know if we told Sean to drop it, so he might have read it. So if he read that one, I want to give him time to do the work. But if he didn't read it, we'll just skip it.
I guess I'll figure out when you put the list up which one you took off.
Oh, no, it's on the list. That's the thing.
Yeah.
So we'll just come to it and be like, did you read this one? And if you say yes, we'll let you talk about it.
Oh, okay.
All right.
I've read them all, if that helps.
It doesn't, because that means it doesn't.
I read all but one. I ran out of time because I had 2 extra books to read for the other show.
I skimmed all but one, so I'm kidding. I read a couple of them, and then I took a nap. Not intentionally, and then I read a couple more. And then I took another unintentional nap. As it turns out, maybe my bed is not the best place to read these things. I need a slightly less comfortable chair. So, all right, let's start here. Darkwing Duck #1 from Dynamite.
I have had that theme song going through my head for weeks now because I've been helping promote this. Darkwing Duck. When you're in trouble, just call DW. Darkwing Duck. Yeah.
Yep.
The comic doesn't disappoint.
No, not at all.
No, Amanda Dibert wrote it, and Carlo Loro did the art, and it felt like one of the episodes of the TV show.
Yep.
The arrogance of Darkwing Duck, the brilliance of his daughter and her buddy. It worked on all levels. The art's good. And the covers, there's some great covers on this. The David Nakayama cover right there. I go way back with David. David was the cover artist on the first book I ever did for Zenoscope, or one of the first books I did for Zenoscope for the Grimm Fairy Tales. So I've been following David, and I love that he's doing these. He's doing these and the Gargoyle ones, and they're just great. But if you're a fan of Darkwing Duck, you're going to love this. It is exactly what you expect. Yeah.
Yep. Same thing. My inner 8-year-old was screaming while I was reading this. I had such a good time. I think if I remember right, Amanda had said in the interview, this basically takes place slightly after the series. If you're a continuity kind of snob, I loved it. It was one of those. I needed a good laugh. I needed to have a good time because I've got a busted eardrum, so it's been a really meh week for me. So I needed to relax, and this was a good one to open up with.
I will say this for this book. I am a DuckTales fan. Not really a Darkwing Duck fan. So when Launchpad McQuack was in the second panel, I'm like, sold. I need nothing more than Launchpad McQuack. Like, so it really did hit all of the touch points that anybody who was a Saturday morning cartoons kid was looking for. Like, and we didn't have Disney coming up, so like we only got it when we would get the free preview from the cable company. So you really had to get your Darkwing Duck, your DuckTales, and your Tailspin, and all that kind of stuff in as quickly as you could. This felt like a really great read of those, like one of those scripts would have been. I will say that what appears to be 40 plus covers might be a few too many. 40 plus is a lot. And I know some of those are store exclusives and other things, but like for somebody like me who was going to attempt to be a completionist on this and Gargoyles, I'm going to no longer be attempting that. So.
Well, the publisher wouldn't do it if they weren't going to sell. And
no, and absolutely they will sell.
Yeah.
But instead of spending a lot of time right now trying to pick them all up, I'm just going to not worry about it as much. And if I find them, great.
You also got to think that for both this and Gargoyles, there are a ton of artists out there who would just love to do them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Not pointing the finger at anyone. If I could draw, and you're like, "Do you want to draw Darkwing?" Yes. Don't ask. Say less. Yes. So no, it's one of those things. Is that I had put it in my brain that I was going to try and pick up all the covers, but there's just too many to do that to. So we're just gonna have to make sure I get all the authentics. Speaking of Gargoyles, Gargoyles number 2.
Another David Nakayama cover. I like this one, but not quite as much as Darkwing. I'm not as big a fan of the art on this one, but it's not bad in it by any stretch of the imagination. And to me, the story is a little convoluted. You really need to have been up on the Gargoyles entire run because it feels like it's picking up from the series, and you've got the same writer from the show, Greg Weisman. So it really is. And there's characters in here I don't remember from the show. So from that point of view, it's a little confusing. But again, if you grew up and you watched all of these, this is exactly what you want. It's continuing it. It's like season whatever of Gargoyles the next season after it ended. So
yeah, I think for me, the only characters that I don't recognize are the ones that are expecting. Basically, those are the two that I actually don't recognize from the show. Everybody else I'm fairly familiar with. While the first issue was a lot about recapping and trying to reintroduce everything, at least this one felt like it drove the story in a direction which was good. I didn't think it would take them long to bring Xanatos in here in some way, so I'm curious how he's going to fit. But I'm in agreement with Dan in that I like it. I enjoyed Darkwing a little more, probably because I like the light humor. But 100%, if you were into this, you have to read it. It's really, really good.
See, and in this regard, I would flip them. I preferred this to Darkwing only because this was more my jam as a kid. Right? Like I loved the Gargoyles TV show. I loved the concept. Here in Toledo we have buildings that have gargoyles on them. And so I remember being a kid thinking that they were going to come to life, fight crime. These kind of things. So Gargoyles for me holds an incredibly near and dear place in my heart in that regard. And so I really liked this book. Like Sean said, moves the plot forward, moves the story forward, takes all the bricks that were laid in issue 1 and pushes them forward now going into a new story arc. So really, really enjoyed it. And I will say this, we had 4 Dynamite books this week, and not one of them was in any way a letdown or a slowdown or any kind of, this was a really big week for them. And
I agree.
After having none last week, it's good to see him come back with a big swing.
Yeah.
So, all right. Next is the book that Dan and I didn't read. Belle's Scream of the Banshees.
Yeah. This just happened to be my least favorite book of the entire week.
Good. We'll skip it.
So.
Do you want to talk about it?
Well, I could basically put it this way. It was very middle of the road. I don't know what it is about Belle, but they put way too much exposition in all of her books. Like every panel had something. There were a couple of panels that didn't have anything there, and it was like, thank God, you don't need it with what the art is trying to do in this book. But I'm not saying it's terrible, because there have definitely been way worse from them recently. But it's just one of those, I still can't get behind it like the Oz book that's out right now. But if you like Belle and you want to read this, it's worth it. It's not terrible. The art's fairly consistent. So, if what Belle does is your thing, definitely check it out. But for me, it was just it couldn't just grab me in personally.
All right.
Does it feel like it's been a very, 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 very,
Forever.
very, very, like Counting Crows, very long time since we've seen the last issue 2 of this book?
Was that a dig on classic great American jam band Counting Crows?
It's just a reference to their Long December song.
Or by the fact that most of their songs are like 8.5 minutes if you see them live?
No, just the very, 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 very late thing.
They if you ever see them live, the only band that jams longer with no direction is Fish. Like even at the height of their stone, the Grateful Dead knew where they were going more than Counting Crows live, and I love Counting Crows live. So
this is probably my favorite book right now from Colin Bunn, hands down. I think he's handling these characters really well. We're getting to explore these characters who are usually kind of on the side a lot. Dr. Mirage has had her book, and Eternal Warriors had his book, but they never really get the prominence as the big, as Exo, Shadow Man, and Ninjak get. So it's nice to see them getting a little more prominence, but it's still a strong Shadow Man book too. And I really like this combination, but there's never been a more D&D name outside of a D&D book than Exarch Fane. It just sounds like your typical D&D villain. Yeah, but I'm really glad this is back. I've been waiting to see where this is going. Hopefully it won't be, three Counting Crows songs till we get to the next one. But I like it. I'm glad it's back.
So I honestly have forgot the series was out, so I hadn't read 1 and 2. That said, I actually didn't feel that lost coming into this book and reading it, which I guess should say something for how well Cullen is writing on this. I made the same note. I actually like this group of characters. It's nice to see Shadow Man, Punk, and Dr. Mirage. I'm been wanting to read Dr. Mirage actually quite a bit to see what that character's like. And then what is it? Persephone, the other character, kind of the wild card in the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely just a really, really good book. Dark, but in a really good way, which is, I think, what Cullen Bunn excels at. He can give you a dark book, but it's really just something you can almost relate to in a weird way. But definitely going to go back and check out 1 and 2 so that when, I guess, 4 is the finale. Is that correct?
I think so.
That way I know exactly what happened. But it's really, really good. Valiant, between this and Bloodshot, this has been some really classic, great Valiant.
You should also check out the Shadow Man series prior to this.
I'd heard about it.
If this series wasn't almost over, the long break between issues 2 and 3 may have been a stopper for me. Like, in the sense that I would have been like, well, I guess I'm not getting any more of that, and just moved on, right? It took so long that I forgot this book existed, and in all reality had moved on to other things in my brain. So for me to pick this story back up was a little tough. I wasn't as interested in it as I was before. I wasn't as excited for this book as I had been for issues 1 and 2. That said, still a great story. Still a really fun story. Still a really good take on these characters. I like Senior Flamey Sword. You know, I forget his name.
Exarch Fame.
Yeah, that guy. I like, you know, I kind of like the, you know what this almost reminds me of? The first Guardians. You know, and the Exarch Fane kind of reminds me of
Ronin the Accuser.
Ronin the Accuser, right. Like it has that vibe to me. So I really enjoy it, but it was hurt by the fact that it took forever to get in issue 3. So that to me is a bummer. So
would that make Persephone Groot or Drax?
I lean more towards Drax.
Can she be the Nova Corps guy that's not John C. Reilly?
Oh, the Peter Serafinowicz?
Yeah, Peter Serafinowicz.
Why am I just pulling names like crazy?
I don't know, but I really want to test Dan's obscure reference gun now.
Well, you've thrown 3 at me now.
True. But yeah, no, I really like this. If it, like I said, I'm down for issue 4 now. I might not have been if it, you know, if Dan hadn't remembered that we were reading this.
Yeah, no, I've been waiting for it. So.
Yeah. All right. My holy crap, what am I reading book of the week? In that, please make this an ongoing. Don't make me wait for another mini series. Please just keep going. Please, please, please.
Well, we do know that in April we're going to get more. And
We
it's
are.
Philip Kennedy Johnson. And I got to talk to him last week. And he said in the interview that the ending changed. And I think it's pretty obvious what the change was. Because I don't think the person driving the car was going to be in the ending. I think he suddenly came up with an idea. What if that person's not dead? And it changed everything. That's my guess from what I had talked to him. And my God, that was a good twist.
Yes.
Yeah. This is still just killing it. I have been a fan of what Dynamite's been doing with Bond ever since they got the license. But there is something about this series that just really clicks. You know? And it might be, as I also learned during the interview, that Philip and I seem to be on the same wavelength when we think about Bond. So it does feel like it's being written for me and what I love about the character. But everybody else seems to be liking it too. So But this was a real good finale, and I cannot wait till April where we get the next part of the series.
Dare I say this was the strongest of the Dynamite books this week with how good it is?
Oh, dare.
Any cartoon book is going to be stronger than this only because cartoons.
No, that's the winner for me.
I'm not saying I'm not comparing apples to oranges, but I think Darkwing Duck takes James Bond in a fight. I'm just saying. And maybe not intentionally in a Mr. Bean kind of way, but
notice that thing on the right there on the cover, the gun that Darkwing doesn't seem to carry.
I'm just saying.
A launch pad and his daughter. So this series is so freaking good. Like, anybody who has not read this, go back and read all 6 issues. You have to. I am not the biggest Bond fan in the world, but this is some of the best reading, period, for me over the last few months. I'm definitely going to try to get this whole series collected for myself. It's that good. I honestly don't even know what's happening, and I'm okay with that. That's how good he's making the twists and everything in here. How many more issues are set for the series?
This series ends at this is the last one of this, but they're starting. They're going to pick up in April and do more.
Okay,
so the series will continue on. The cliffhanger ending will continue in the next series.
Okay, yeah, because the way they left that, I was like, oh, I am so excited for the next issue. It's a shame, though, that we've got to wait 3 months for that continuation. But this, all I can say is that this is one of the best series going, or was, period. You have to read this. So I'm just going to leave it there. Exclamation.
Yeah, I kind of said my thing. Like, just make it an ongoing. Don't make me wait. Because you may run into the same problem Books of Shadows did. I may forget how much I cared. And I don't want to do that because I really am loving this book.
This feels like with Philip, he could do he can make it like a saga or an Invincible that you can go and do 30, 40 issues and this would never be bad. That's what it feels like. It has that kind of feeling to it.
To me, it feels a little bit like the ending of Casino Royale and the start of Quantum of Solace, where you don't realize, they're separate movies. We're used to there being a gap. We're not used to them continuing. And it does pick up right at the end. I mean, it continues minutes later between the two movies. So,
yeah.
Yep. All right. Lord of the Jungle #3. Other than this cover, which I think is a really cool cover, not a lot of this book stuck out to me from the last book in terms of it didn't feel better or worse. It didn't feel further along or behind. It just kind of felt like the same sort of thing. And that's not bad because, these books have been so good.
Mm-hmm.
But I expected something to happen in this book that didn't. And I don't know what I was expecting because clearly I'm expecting something that makes no sense because the book is so good. So I don't know what my hang up was on this book, but of the great books from Dynamite this week, this was like the least great, which isn't, again, it's still a great book.
See, I'd put this over the cartoon books, but then I'm not a cartoon guy.
Right.
I enjoy them, but it's, I think Jurgens is doing a really good job. He's telling a story and he's not rushing it. And it feels like that, in a sense, this is going to be an amazing trade when you sit down and read it, because it doesn't have your normal story beats you would get. Like, third issue, you need something big to happen. You're right, nothing big happens, but we do get a lot of stuff going on. You know, we start figuring out how he discovers who he is, and we get that those kind of things start happening. And those are things that we do need because it is sort of a retelling of his origin, but in a very unique way, a way we don't normally get, in that we're getting it from an older version of Tarzan's friend and an older version of Tarzan. So I find it a very interesting take, and I'm enjoying it. And it's probably one of the better Tarzan stories I've come across in a long time. But yeah, it's not following the normal story beats that you get in comics. So it'll be interesting to see what we get with the 4th issue. And I don't know how long this series is. I'm hoping it's 5 or 6 issues.
Yeah. One, I think Dan Jurgens is doing a great job of pacing in this one. It's just been inconsistency. All 3 issues have consistently been really good reads. And then I think once he finally gives you the big moment in the story, then that issue is going to be, I mean, everything's great, but I can only imagine how great that issue is going to be when it gets there. And it's going to make the buildup and what he's doing now worth it even more, I think, once that point actually comes. This, again, is my first Tarzan series ever, and I'm absolutely loving it. I guess it just took someone like Dan writing a book like this for me to get into the character so that I can go back and maybe check out other series from the past.
Absolutely. I got an alert that something had happened with the Eisner Awards, and I clicked on it, and it was just find out about the Eisner Awards. I'm like, this is a misleading email. I thought it'd be something worth, sharing with people during our show here. It was not. All right. I guess throw a coin to me because I didn't read this book.
Oh. I was real pleasantly surprised with the first issue on this one. I thought it really captured not just the characters from the show, but the actual characters from the book and the tone and the writing that you get from the books. And yeah, it's a video game franchise. It's a TV series, but it started as a series of prose novels. Some of them are small anthology pieces and others are full-length novels. But this follows that. And I think they do a really good job of keeping that feel, the kind of short adventures. Now we're in the second episode of it, or second issue of it, but they're never very straightforward. There's always twists and turns in whatever version of a classic folklore they're doing. And in this case, it's a story of werewolves, or rather werewolves, because it does say the Ballad of Two Wolves, and it does seem to be going that direction. But and it's interesting because it also feels like maybe they've mixed in Little Red Riding Hood in the middle of it, which I thought was kind of interesting. But overall, I'm really enjoying it. I think anybody who's a fan of the series will like this. But if you're a fan of the books, if you've read the books, like I said, this feels like it's being taken straight out of the books. It's not, but it has that feel. So,
yeah. Yeah, I thought the first issue was good. This one felt better. The air of mystery over what's actually going on, I thought was done really well, the way they wrote it and everything, because now the title makes a little more sense. He's figured out who One Wolf is. Now the title, once I saw that, I was like, okay, the title makes a little more sense. And like Dan said, I'm like, okay. So now I'm really curious what is really truly going on. And of course, throwing in a little classic Little Red Riding Hood, I thought was kind of a nice little touch to throw in that kind of a fairy tale. I thought his dry sense of humor stuck out quite a bit more in this book. Like, I had a couple of chuckle moments with Geralt and whatnot, just at least to me anyways. It seemed like the juxtaposition between him and what is his side character's name?
and here it's Dandelion. In the things, it's Jasker.
But the back and forth between two of them, for whatever reason, this time around was a lot more humorous than it was maybe in the first one. So I thoroughly am enjoying this series for sure. Again, it has that typical Dark Horse feel to it. I don't know what it is, but usually when you pick up a Dark Horse book, artistically, they always have a similar feel to them. I don't know why.
Yeah, this is one, and I must have just missed it on the server, right? We read the first one, and I remember thinking this could be interesting because I'm not a big Witcher fan, but this book presented in such a way that I had become interested. And then I saw it on the list, and I put in the thing and went, I don't think I read this book. Not for any reason other than I think I missed it in the server. So I will be going back after the show tonight and reading this one. And I appreciate you guys' take on it because it reminded me how much I liked the first one, even though it's not generally my wheelhouse. So I'm really looking forward to this one. Okay. Dragon Age, the missing number 1. I have a Dragon Age story that I would like to share.
Okay.
I don't know if any of you guys have played Dragon Age, the RPG in a box. So in this world, they created an RPG in a box, which everything was contained, right? Character sheets were already made. Everything was done. All you had to do was find 3 D6s, and 2 of them had to be the same color, and 1 of them had to be different. And we were playing the Dragon Age RPG in a box, and it was my friend's first time ever role-playing. And he turned our whole party into basically that guy in the cover in the background. He managed to roll 3 1s 3 times, which in the game is such a critical failure. It converted the whole team into unholy abominations. So to say this book was not a little triggering would be an understatement to my friend Chris's failures at tabletop RPGs.
So that statement I made a second ago about how Dark Horse books have that feel to them, this book does not. It actually was a departure from the vibe I usually get from a Dark Horse book. And I think that's probably why I enjoyed it. The story was decent enough, moved along. I liked the art. Definitely, actually, we'll probably read issue 2. It was one of those where nothing stuck out a lot, but it just felt solid enough that I want to read issue 2, I guess. But I don't know much about this world at all. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know if it's like a video game franchise, novels, what it was, to be perfectly honest. It's a name I've always seen, but I just don't know where it comes from. And I know that sounds really weird. But if you like your kind of medieval times with all your classic, some of your mythical characters, this is definitely a book that you'll enjoy, especially just, like I said, the art is actually pretty pleasant to look at.
I'm going to admit that until I sat down and read this, I thought Dragon Age and Dragon's Lair was the same thing, which is very different. I understand that now. So I don't know what Dragon Age is either. But it was a number 1, so I thought we should probably read it. It's a number 1. It comes across a lot like a D&D book. And with the new D&D trailer having dropped this week, think of it like that. It's a D&D story without as much humor, or like Critical Role. So if you're into Critical Role and you're into D&D, just tone down your expectation on the humor and you've got this book. So,
okay.
All right. Speaking of Critical Role, Dan, what are we talking about this week, tomorrow, and Thursday on the Dan Wickline Show?
Well, you wanted to come on and talk Critical Role. So which day do you want to come on?
You tell me.
Either one works for me.
Well, just tell me. I'm available both days.
All right, let's do that tomorrow.
Okay.
So we'll talk Critical Role tomorrow, the first 3 episodes. And then Thursday, I think I'm going to go a little deeper into what Lobo, if Jason Momoa is Lobo, what that might mean, and how it could possibly tie into a Superman movie.
To me, it definitely means that they finally cast him as a character he should have been from the beginning. Like, the dude looks like Lobo.
Yeah. He looks more like Lobo than he does Aquaman.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because
Wilson looks like Aquaman or whatever
I was laughing. It's like the brother looks like Aquaman and Jason Momoa looks like Surfer Dude in an Aquaman uniform.
Yeah. Jay says, my friends played a ton of Dragon Age 2 on Xbox back in the day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
Dragon Age started as a video game.
okay.
No. I refuse to accept the phrase back in the day and Xbox. Back in the day is Atari 2600, not Xbox.
Oh, I had Intellivision was my first video game console.
Mine was the Atari 2600.
It was Intellivision, then we got Nintendo.
My first console was PlayStation.
You know that little football game that they have that pops up in Guardians of the Galaxy and stuff?
You know
Tecmo Bowl. And yeah, I had those new.
Well, I had a lot of that kind of stuff. I never had a system until PlayStation, and I had a computer relatively young. But
I also had Sega Channel, which most people don't seem to remember.
No.
Yeah,
okay, Sean.
Yeah.
Triangle of Truth. What Triangle of Truth stuff is happening, or do we need Jay to tell us?
No, we've got. I've got to edit a video tonight, but it's going to be a cover challenge that we take part in with a couple of other YouTube channels that put it on. Basically, the theme of this one is favorite covers from 2022. So I've got 10 covers that I'm going to show off on that one. A little bit of a variety of everything, little DC. I don't think I have any Marvel, but that kind of stuff. And then probably a review coming out Friday. I'm not sure what book just yet. Probably something from this show because a lot of it was really good this week.
Yeah, and I just want to take a second again and say that you guys, there's a bunch of releases from Dynamite this week, and every last one of them kicks absolute ass. Like, I'm not saying that to be facetious in any kind of way, but like, we read 4 of them, and the other one was what was the other one? I'm like, we probably should have read that one too because we all like that.
Oh, there's Vampirella Strikes 9's out.
Vampirella Strikes,
Sirens Gate 3,
Cherish 3.
Cherish 3.
Yeah,
but yeah, another Sirens Gate. There was another one. Oh, and there's a one-shot Ninjets, the final issue of Ninjets. But there's also, because it was too big for Green Hornet One Night in Bangkok by Shannon Eric Denton and Jethro Morales is out this week too. So if you're a pulp guy, Shannon does great work. So, that's another one. And I hope you can get through reading it without hearing Murray Head in your head.
Too late.
Yeah.
Except that I'm hearing Anthony Head as Rupert from Ted Lasso sing One Night in Bangkok, his brother's song from the musical Chaz. Look, it's a bad place to be.
I think of Anthony Head from the old Taster's Choice commercials.
That's fair, but my head is a dangerous place to be as it relates to Murray Head and Anthony Head. All right. TMNT, The Last Ronin, The Lost Years, #1.
Can we just have this instead of Armageddon Game?
Yeah.
I'd be okay with that because Armageddon Game is slow. This I enjoyed. This is following Michelangelo, the later years.
It's actually not the latest years you've read of Michelangelo, though.
No, these are the lost years.
Right. So this book takes place between Last Ronin, the big event that came out, a year or so ago, and where TMNT is now. So this is almost like Andor in that kind of filling in the gap of in a story. And I will be honest, Dan, the only reason I chimed in is that I felt like Last Ronin was slow.
Mm-hmm.
and had these things been in it, it would have been a lot faster.
So I'll let Dan first.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was a good story, and it has that. It has what's been missing for me from the art. To me, the turtles, when they work, it feels like an Akira Kurosawa film. When they have that samurai feel to them, then I think they're great. And when they go off track and it becomes these big soap operas is when I don't like them that much. This was back to feeling like an Akira Kurosawa film to me. This was The Last Ronin, so this one clicked for me where the Armageddon game hasn't been. So
all right. So Kyle, don't walk away from the camera. I haven't read Last Ronin yet, but it is right here. I've got it. But that said,
Actually, I have to step away real quick. So go ahead and do your thing. Jay's got it, and I'll be listening on my phone.
okay.
So but yeah, Dan, I'm with you in that Armageddon game has been so boring. This book was really, really good. And you get to see a side of Michelangelo that you are not accustomed to. He is very much the jokester, the upbeat one, almost kind of the one you can count on if you're feeling down to lift you up. And to see him in this state where he's broken like he is from what had happened is, to me, probably one of the most intriguing things I've seen of anything in TMNT. Did you feel this version of Splinter seemed a little darker than what he normally is? Because it sure felt like that in the flashbacks to me.
Yeah, but I think we're seeing it from Michelangelo's eyes.
True. That yeah, I didn't think about it like that until you said that. Yeah, because it the way he was, I guess, when everything had happened, it sure seemed like everybody else was on a different or like I said, it's just on a darker side than he was, I guess. But I guess when you were where he was at that point, without spoiling it for anybody, it makes sense, like you said, that the flashback would be portrayed in that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, and the art on this is fantastic. Like whoever, I don't know who the artist is on this actually. Is it Eastman? Or
No.
Peter Laird? But
I'll look it up real quick.
Go ahead, sorry.
I'll look it up real quick.
But they do a great job of making the turtles look like you would expect. And I feel bad for anybody who's a big fan of, or who is a fan of, like the mid-2010s movies that came out, because they really did not make the turtles look good. They're not 8 feet tall and this and that. They're like this high. And what? But it's a really, really good series. If you liked The Last Ronin and want to see the gaps filled, you have to read this. I've got it on my pull list, so I'll definitely be keeping up with it.
The pencils well, it's two different people doing the artwork. Well, actually, three different people. The past stories are done by S.L. Gallant, who also did the cover.
Okay.
The now are pencils and inks by Ben Bishop. And then when we do Splinter's Journal, it's Kevin Eastman.
Ah, okay.
So yeah, there's three different artists working on it.
And yet it all went together really, really well, which I think speaks to how the art team did. It wasn't one of those, it was too jarring of a difference. I thought they all blended together really, really well.
Yeah, I agree.
So now if we can just get Armageddon game to be this good. I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't either.
Sorry about that, fellas. I suddenly didn't feel well. I needed to go take care of that. No, you're good. I just want to say real quick on Last Ronin. When the original Last Ronin came out, I made a comment to Kevin and Peter about how they haven't worked together in so long. It's like when two friends from separate places start dating. And they're like, oh yeah, we knew each other for a long time before this. This is how I felt about the first one.
Mm-hmm.
Ben Bishop's art really was the thing that stood out in the first one. It wasn't the writing of Peter and Kevin, even though they were great together. It wasn't Tom Waltz bringing in some pent-up frustrations that he's had. It was Ben Bishop. So I will say this. As long as Ben is your primary artist, which I believe is how this is working, he's doing one section, but he's overseeing all the art. The look of this book is going to be second to none.
Yeah.
So, all right. Damn Them All #4, Simon Spurrier, Charlie Adlard.
I don't get
I
this.
keep forgetting we're doing this book, and then it comes in, and I look at it like, 4th issue. Why are we? Oh yeah, it's this book with the sudden pages of prose for no apparent reason. Though I actually thought this. I've always thought this was a good premise, and it's always felt like maybe Simon Spurrier had an idea for a Hellblazer story that didn't get picked up, so he decided to do it on his own. But this one starts coming back around. This one starts, I'm starting to get what he's doing here. But we need to get to the end, and I am really tired of those prose pages. I don't think they work.
Well, we have Damn Them All, and we have what's the Scott Snyder book from Comixology Presents?
Book of Evil.
Book of Evil. Right. They have short titles, but pages of prose. Maybe that's the new thing. We're going to get back to titles that are a normal, regular length that, could fit all on one page. But in exchange, you have to deal with pages of prose.
I said Belle was my least favorite book, and I was actually wrong. It was this. Again, I still haven't read issues 1 and 2 because reading issue 3 and how all over the place it was, I don't really have any interest to go back and read. It probably would help my understanding of the book, though, if I did. That said, I almost just started skimming through this book because the first quarter, maybe half of it, felt exactly like issue 3. Made no sense to me whatsoever. And then all of a sudden, you get to that one spot with the blind dude, and then the book kind of started making sense. So I was like, okay, I'll at least finish it out. I can get why people might be interested in this, but the story is so convoluted for me that I just can't get into it to really, I guess, enjoy what he's trying to do. So, like Dan said, I'm kind of ready for this one to be done and just move along.
Jay doesn't like pages of prose either.
Yeah. If we wanted pages of prose, we'd buy a book.
It's true.
And I don't even read books anymore. I listen to them. If Simon wants to send out an audio recording of that page, fine. I'd be happy to flip it on at that point, or maybe one of those things run your little thing.
Look, QR code.
Yeah,
there we go.
I'm shocked that they haven't done that. I'm shocked. I'm shocked that's something that hasn't made its way in. Right, like certain pages have QR codes, or that you can hear audio for the book. Like, oh, this page is in an alien language. Well, now you can hear the alien language. Like some of that augmented reality kind of stuff. I'm shocked.
Or there's a phone message they have to listen to. You could actually do the QR code and listen to it on your phone.
Right.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. Right. I think that's a trick that is being missed. I read the first. I remember this. I read the first issue while waiting at an orthopedist's office with a friend of mine who had broken their ankle. And thinking, gee, this is a great book. But I think it was because of the setting that I was in and the amount of bored that I was that made this book seem stronger than it was. That said, I do like the idea of an alternative Constantine story.
Yeah.
Them doing an alternative Hellblazer type thing. I just don't know that it's coming together the way they had hoped, or that it's getting pulled off the way it deserves to be. So, it's still an interesting concept, still a fun story. Well, as fun as you can get when you're telling a story that's this dark. But it's got some execution things, I think, that could use to be revisited in the future. Okay. A Legacy of Violence #4.
It is ironic that one of my favorite books of the week and my least favorite book of the week were written by the same person. I do not like this book. I have not liked any of the issues. And when that came over from you, when Kyle sent this one over, I'm like, oh no. And I don't like this one any better. It just does not work for me. So that's all I got on this.
All right. I'll be Jay. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. My main gripe is, for the love of God, quit teasing Unit 731. Just bring it out already. We're 4 issues in. I'm a little tired of it. That said, I actually did enjoy the book. For whatever reason, it's got me hooked ever since about halfway through the first one, and it hasn't done anything yet to dissuade me. It got, again, like with, I think it was issue 2 with the car scene out in front of the bar. What they did to the doctor in this one was very, very dark. And for whatever reason, I was all about it. But I think what really got me was that flashback where he's with the therapist, and that question that they raised, for whatever reason, has me hooked still, because I want to know how the answer to that question and how that plays into what's going on here in present day. So I'm in for it. So I recommend people check it out personally.
Run away.
I will say this. I was big into this book when I thought it was 4 issues. This is just part 1 of a 12-part miniseries.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, wow.
There are 8 more issues of this book.
Oh, my God.
If I have to wait 7 more issues to find out what 731 means.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I don't think I keep reading it after issue 4. That's not to say I won't pick up a trade when all 12 issues are out, so I can finally figure out what the heck is happening. But as a single floppy book, I don't think this book holds my attention enough to wait on a hiatus for issues 5 through 8 or 5 through whatever 9. So it's good. I like the story, but not as 3-4-part miniseries. So we'll move on to Dahlia in the Dark.
I remember reading the first one and thinking, but I really liked the second one. It came, it made me like the first one better too. I like the concept. I like what the girl goes into hiding. I still don't know what all the players are and what's going on, but it's starting to bring me around. So I'm definitely curious to see what issue 3 brings us.
Same. It feels like they did a second issue of a little more setup to bring more players and a little more background into it. But it's still really good, and I really want to know what exactly is going on with the package and whatnot. And they do a good job of leaving it on decent cliffhangers so that you're ready to come into the next book and see what's happening.
Yeah.
Next week from the folks over at Mad Cave, we'll have a new Nottingham series.
Oh, yes.
And then nothing from them because we're not reading Nature's Labyrinth. So we'll have Dahlia in the Dark #3. And then their new stuff starts in beginning of March with Hunt, Kill, Repeat, more Nottingham, and Don't Spit in the Wind.
Always good advice.
It's true. All right, guys, we are out of time. ComicShopLocator.com to find out comic shops near you. Stay tuned for Minute to Skim It and an hour and a half with Mint Hunter Comics. And then later on tonight will be Country Roads Comics. So we'll see everybody there.
Chicken
Bye,
stickers.
guys.